Welcome to the deep dive, where we really try to unpack fascinating topics and give you those essential nuggets you need. Today, we're taking a deep dive into testing, and maybe more importantly, actually boosting your brain power. Yeah, our main source material for this one is Test Your IQ 400 Questions to Boost Your Brain Power. It's by Philip Carter and Ken Russell. Came out first in 2000, reissued in 2007, sort of a classic in its field. So our mission today really is to unpack what they mean by intelligence and IQ in this book. We'll explore the kinds of, challenges and questions they include and try to understand how doing these tests is actually supposed to enhance your mental game. Because, and this is key, it's not really just about getting a number, a score. It's framed more as a journey, like mental growth.
Right. And to kick us off, the book defines intelligence quite broadly. It says it's the ability to respond adaptively to new situations, to think abstractly, and to comprehend complex ideas. So pretty wide-ranging. Now, IQ itself, that stands for intelligence quotient. And quotient, well, that just means the result you get when you divide one number by another. So an IQ test, in their terms, is a standardized test designed to measure human intelligence as distinct from attainments. Meaning it's trying to get at your, let's say, raw cognitive ability, not just what you learned in school.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit because the book makes a really interesting point about how IQ is measured differently for kids versus adults. That seems pretty important for understanding what a score actually represents.
It really is. Yeah, for children, the calculation is quite specific. It's based on development. You take their mental age, divide it by their actual, chronological age, and then times 100. They give this example. Say an 8-year-old kid scores what you'd expect from a 10-year-old. Well, their IQ comes out as 125 because, 10 divided by 8 times 100. So it's really comparing their mental development to, like, age norms.
Okay, so it's a developmental benchmark for kids,
Yeah,
but then it changes for adults.
exactly. The book says this method does not apply to adults.
Oh.
And the reason given is that beyond the age of 18, there is little or no improvement in mental development in that same sort of stage-like way. So for adults, it shifts. The results are basically graded above and below a norm, an average. They state the average score is 100. So for adults, it's less about hitting a new mental age and more about how you compare statistically to others, like a snapshot of where you stand relative to the average.
Right, that makes sense. A snapshot versus a growth chart. And this distinction is important because the authors are upfront about the tests in this book. They say point blank that the tests that have been compiled for this book have not been standardized, so an actual IQ assessment cannot be given. But, and this is where it gets really interesting for you listening,
Yeah.
the purpose isn't really to give you that score. It's more about providing valuable practice for readers who may have to take an IQ test in the future, like prep work.
Exactly, but it goes beyond just test prep. That's what's cool. They explicitly say these exercises will also help to increase your vocabulary and to develop your powers of calculation and logical reasoning. Think of it like mental weightlifting. The questions are designed to be tough. They say the questions are challenging, and deliberately so, as this is the only way to boost your performance and increase your brain power. You gotta push yourself, basically.
Complete brain workout then.
Yeah.
Okay, so how is the book actually structured? How does this workout play out?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. There are 10 separate tests for you to attempt,
Okay.
each of 40 questions.
40 questions per test. And are they all equally hard?
They say each test is of approximately the same degree of difficulty. So, yeah, pretty consistent challenge.
And you're timed.
Yep. A time limit of 90 minutes is allowed for each test. Gives it that, test-like pressure.
90 minutes for 40 questions.
Okay.
And scoring.
Simple enough. The correct answers are given at the end of the book, and you should award yourself 1 point for each correct answer. So you get instant feedback on how you did.
And crucially, the book helps you track how you're doing over time. Right? It's not just a one-off.
Exactly. It gives you a guide to assessing your performance in each test, and also a cumulative guide for your overall performance on all 10 tests.
So you can actually see if you're getting better.
Yeah, you can track your progress. They have these score rating tables. Like for one test, getting 36 to 40 correct is exceptional. 25 to 30 is very good. 14 to 18 is average. And then there's a cumulative table for all 10 tests. So scoring 351 to 400 overall is exceptional. 140 to 180 is average across the whole set.
Ah, okay. So you get benchmarks for individual tests and for the whole series, which means for you, the learner, you can actually see that brain workout paying off, hopefully. Right, let's get into the nitty-gritty then. What kind of questions are we talking about? You said it's varied.
Oh, it's definitely varied. A real mix. You get verbal reasoning and word puzzles. For example, question one is like a word jumble. Create 2 words using the following 10 letters each one's only. Clue. Grand tune. 4-6. My Civo Delta.
Okay. Tricky. What's the answer?
It's Old Youth. Took me a second, too.
Oh. Okay.
Or you get things like, which is the odd one out from a list, say.
Yeah.
Isthmus, Fjord, Atoll, Polder, Archipelago, tests vocabulary and categorization.
Right. Geographical features mostly. Is Polder the odd one out? Man-made.
You got it. Then there's numerical reasoning and logic. Like test 1, question 9 is a classic average speed problem. Car goes 40 mile per hour one way, 60 mile per hour to back. What's the average speed?
Ah, the harmonic mean one, not just a simple average.
Exactly. Tests logical application, not just calculation. Or you might get number sequences to complete, like 38, 24, 62, 12, 74. You need to spot the pattern.
Okay, so verbal, numerical. What else?
Abstract and visual reasoning. These can be quite different. You might see visual puzzles comparing shapes like circles and dots, trying to find relationships, or grids where you have to combine symbols or lines according to a rule, or maybe a pattern of hexagons with one missing tile and you have to figure out which tile fits. Test your spatial sense, pattern recognition.
Interesting. So nonverbal stuff, too.
Definitely. And finally, there's also vocabulary and general knowledge. More direct tests of what you know, like which word means the same as anchorite. Options might be recluse, hieroglyphics, etc.
Recluse, I think.
Correct. Or what is the name given to a group of rooks? Is it a murmuration, a park, a building?
A building, that's a classic trivia one.
Yeah. So what's really fascinating here, I think, is how this variety taps into different facets of what we call intelligence. It's verbal skill, math aptitude, spatial reasoning, abstract pattern spotting. It's really testing how you think, how you connect ideas, not just what you know.
Which brings us back to that idea of a complete workout, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's designed to push different mental muscles to really boost your performance, like the authors say. So wrapping this up, this deep dive into Test Your IQ, it really underscores that intelligence isn't some fixed number. It's presented more as a dynamic ability, something you can actually work on, cultivate.
Absolutely. And connecting it back to that initial definition, intelligence as adapting, thinking abstractly. The book's whole approach seems to be challenge yourself with diverse problems, force your brain to adapt, and that's how you develop. That's how intelligence grows.
So whether you're actually prepping for a formal IQ test or you're just looking to sharpen your mind generally, or maybe you're just curious, about pushing your own limits, engaging with these kinds of questions, the verbal, the logical, the visual, it seems like a really concrete way to build up those mental skills.
Yeah, the calculation, the logical reasoning.
Yeah.
It all gets a workout. And remember, like we said, the goal they emphasize isn't just hitting a score, it's the ongoing process. It's about boosting your brain power for the long haul.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to kind of mull over. We live in a world with just so much information, constant change. How might regularly doing these kinds of diverse mental exercises, the kind found in these IQ tests, how might that fundamentally change your ability day to day to grasp complex stuff, spot patterns others miss, and just generally adapt better to new situations? Something to think about as you continue your own learning journey.